But anyway, without further ado, let's get this party started. So let's go ahead and get into Ted Cruz, who was on CNN the past week. Videos making his rounds, and the only reason it literally is making his rounds is because he actually went up with a reporter who wasn't going to allow him to get away with the same rhetoric, who actually she did her homework too and was pushing back on Ted Cruz. But the video that's really getting around is the main, not concern, but the talking point of him not wanting to agree that he will do absolutely nothing, that he will accept the election results of the 2024 election, regardless who wins. And of course, he's pushing back on that with a bunch of anything but the answer. So it's a two-part video. Yeah. Oh, by the way, pay attention to that, Thieves. It was just the Republic. So pay attention to that. But let's get into the first video real quick.
You were the first senator to object to the votes. Mm-hmm. In 2024, will you certify the election results? Do you plan to object, or will you accept the results regardless of who wins the election?
So Caitlin, I got to say, I think that's actually a ridiculous question.
It's a yes or no question, though.
No, it's not. Let me explain why it's a ridiculous question. It's not a question. Have you ever asked a Democrat that?
Of course.
What Democrat?
But what Democrats?
Hold on a second. What Democrats challenge it?
What Democrats? I know. I've been down this road many times.
But
no Democrat. You cannot compare the two situations. We have talked about that. We've seen the audio of that when they protested on the Senate floor.
Hold on a second.
But has you ever had a sitting president who refused to facilitate the peaceful transition of power, refused to acknowledge that his successor won the presidency?
So, A, we did have a peaceful transfer of power. I was there on January 20th. I was there on the swearing in.
Barely.
B, if you look at in 2000, Democrats went to the Senate, or 2001, Democrats went to the Senate floor and objected to George W. Bush. In 2004, they went and objected.
And what did the president do?
In 2016, Democrats went and objected to Donald Trump. And so...
Look, and what happened in 2016? Because I remember a guy named Joe Biden was vice president, and he went to the Senate floor and certified the votes.
So do you
Am I wrong?
So you're asking, will you promise no matter what to agree an election is illegitimate regardless of what happens? And that would be an absurd thing to claim. Like, we have an entire election law system that people challenge elections. Elections get overturned. Voter fraud gets proven. That happens all the time. And the media engages in this weird game post Donald Trump that you insist no voter fraud has ever existed. Why does every state have laws in place to challenge voter fraud if it occurs?
The media
Why do you have election challenges?
This isn't a game. There was no widespread voter fraud.
You only ask Republicans that.
Because it was Republicans who tried to block the transition of power. You have to acknowledge that. So we've never seen it on a scale of what happened in 2020, and we've never seen the president refuse. He wouldn't even let Joe Biden get classified briefings at the beginning. I recall that. So my question for you again, free and fair election, will you accept the results regardless of who wins?
Look, if the Democrats win, I will accept the result, but I'm not going to ignore fraud regardless of what happens.
But was there fraud in 2020?
Of course there was fraud in 2020.
No, there wasn't, and you still objected.
You know for a fact there was zero voter fraud. Really? What's your basis for that? Show me your evidence.
We've spoken with Governor Kemp. They did 3 hand recounts in the state of Georgia. The director of CISA said that it was the safest, most legitimate election.
But you're saying zero voter fraud occurred. That's what you just said.
Nothing that would have changed the outcome of that election.
Okay, but that's a different statement.
But no, it's not. Because
yes, it is. You said there was no voter fraud.
There was no voter fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election, and you know that, Senator.
Two things I want to point out real quick. One, there was voter fraud, 0.001. I may be missing a zero, but I got that point. 0.001. Number two, hey, Ted, who was doing the voter fraud, though? Republicans. There was people in this state and that state, but it was a Republican who was doing the fraud. So yeah, it wasn't zero fraud, but would it be enough to change the results of the election? No. And the lady could have told the truth and said, yeah, it's a different sentence. It's the same result though. I'm just saying it's the same thing. You're not going to ever have zero voter fraud. People are going to be people. Is it enough to change the election? No.